অপর্ণা, তোমার অনুশোচনা হয় না?
কি হয় না?
অনুশোচনা।
অত শক্ত কথা বুঝি না।
আফসোস বোঝো? আফসোস
বুঝি।
আফসোস হয় না?
কিসের আফসোস?
তাও বুঝিয়ে দিতে হবে?
হ্যাঁ, হবে।
বড়লোক বাপ ফসকে গেল তাই আফসোস? হাসছো?
না, হাসছি না, কাঁদছি।
তোমার নিশ্চয়ই আফসোস হয়, তুমি আমাকে বলো না।
তা হয় বই কি, কেমন পায়ের উপর পা দিয়ে বসে থাকতে পারতাম।
চললো।
কোথায়?
ঝিয়ের খোঁজ করতে।
এই শোনো, কি ছেলে মানুষই করছো, উঠে এসো।
সরো।
ঝিয়ের মাইনে দেবে কে?
আর একটা টিউশনি নেব।
তাহলে আমার বাপের বাড়ি পাঠিয়ে দিও।
কেন?
এমনিতেই তো আপিস করে ছেলে পড়িয়ে সেই তো রাত্রি করে বাড়ি ফেরো, তার উপর আবার।
আর উপায় কি বলো?
আমি বলবো যে টিউশনিটা আছে সেটাও ছেড়ে দাও।
তারপর?
তারপর আমার গরিব বর সন্ধ্যের আগেই বাড়ি ফিরে আসবে। আর আমার কোনো অনুশোচনা থাকবে না।
Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. How you
Hey,
doing today?
great. All right, I guess.
All
All
right.
right,
So
great.
what we just saw was a scene from Apur Sansar by the one and only Satyajit Ray. The actors that we saw were obviously Sharmila Tagore and Soumitra Chatterjee. So this is the second episode of RAI, Film and Music Appreciation Podcast and YouTube channel. And we are here again, RNY, trying to create space so we can talk about the things that we love. And today, we're gonna dig into some of my favorite films and use that as a sounding board to talk about our love for films and some of our favorite filmmakers. Is that fair?
Right on.
Right on. All right. So I started with this clip for a very specific reason. So this is my absolutely favorite film of all time, all languages, all countries, ever. And Satyajit Ray is my favorite director, favorite filmmaker. I would argue that he's not only the finest Indian filmmaker who has ever lived, but he's also one of the finest filmmakers that have ever existed. But who am I? Who am I to make that judgment, right? So if you know Akira Kurosawa, the fine Japanese filmmaker from the post-war
era.
era, right? The Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, right? All the samurai movies. He once said that living in the world without watching Satyajit Ray films is like living in the world without seeing the sun and the moon. And that's the profound impact that he had on other filmmakers at the time. He was also a fine artist himself, a writer, wrote a ton of short stories and books, and was very prolific, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that I love the most about Satyajit Ray is this real sensitivity that he brought into his film, as we saw in this clip. So just to give you a little bit of context for like why I find this so beautiful. So
Yes, please.
this is the third movie of a trilogy. The trilogy is called the World of Apur, the Apur trilogy, you can call it, right? The first part is Pathir Panchali that came out in 1955. That was Satyajit Ray's first film. The second part was Aparajito, and the third part was Apur Sansar. The trilogy follows a boy called Apu, who is a young boy in Pathir Panchali, right? He's a teenager in Aparajito, and he's a grown adult and a married man in Apur Sansar, as we saw, played by Soumitra
Right.
Chatterjee. And Soumitra Chatterjee is what to Satyajit Ray, what Robert De Niro has been for Martin Scorsese, what Toshiro Mifune has been for Akira Kurosawa, right? So that pair of actor director, they have done like a ton of movies together, right?
Right.
So that's the type of like relationship that they built over time. So what we are seeing is like the early times of this partnership coming together. So this trilogy follows Apu's story, and it's really about loss because Apu is like growing up in like an impoverished setting in Bengal, um, somewhere like around like during the recently independent India, right? It's that time. So the realism is like so in your face, and it's because what Satyajit Ray used to do that not a lot of people did at the time. He took real people and he made them act in his movies in real settings with real atmosphere, and everything was like so close to reality that the work that he got out of people was just like genuine and authentic, right? That gave him a standing worldwide. Unfortunately, more than the recognition that he got in India at that time. In fact, there are news, and you can look it up. Like Nargis did not like his movies. Like the actress Nargis from Mother India, she argued that he was portraying the darker and the negative aspects of India to the world, and we should rather portray like the good things about India,
More
right?
optimistic, more hopeful. Although,
Right,
yeah, yeah. Which is what Mother India somewhere does, no? Like her own starring magnum opus from this era. Uh,
right,
it does present different kinds of hardships the characters in the film are facing, but then eventually it concludes on a note uh, which is, like, brings in a sense of justice, a sense of optimism for a new India at the time.
right. And
Yeah.
that I think that's spot on. That distinction is spot on. That Mother India, I think it came like a couple of years after Pathir Panchali, right? And but it
57, I think, is
right,
Mother
but it
India.
took a long time to make. So it was like
Yeah,
being
absolutely.
made during that time, and it shows like at least like an upward growth,
Mm,
despite all of the struggles and challenges, right? So it was a new India, an up and coming India, and the struggle of like rising India, but it had an optimism in it.
right.
Satyajit Ray's film had optimism too, but they were not nationalistic in that. They were never nationalistic, right? He was never about like a national identity, but always about like a humanitarian identity. So
Mm,
that's why I would argue that the reason his stories were being acknowledged worldwide is not because he was showing like poverty in India, but because, and this is according to Martin Scorsese actually, because he's
mm,
a big fan of Satyajit Ray himself. And
right.
he said that he watched Pather Panchali on TV in New York a long
Mm,
time ago when he was a kid, and he could relate to everything that was happening in the movie.
mm,
And that's the biggest selling point of Satyajit Ray, that the language and the context and the country was not a barrier
mm.
in communicating
It
the
could
story.
relate, it could transcend that, and transcend the barriers of language and the location, and all of those things, and just could relate halfway across the world.
Right. And I think that's the thing that I think would be the theme for us today is like
Mm.
what makes these special movies special,
Mm.
right? Like what is it about them that they connect with so many people across the world, right? And again, I'm not an expert, but I've been a dork about movies for a very, very long time. In fact, as long as I remember, um, I was like 4 or 5 and like playing outside in the front yard or something, and like my dad would like call me from inside. It's like, hey, come on, come in here. And I would come, and there's like some movie playing on the TV, it's like in the middle of the movie, and he's like, what movie is this? And I'd like watch it for like 5 seconds, and it's like, this is the one, and I'll just like go away and run, like
Uh-huh.
keep playing, right? So that's how long my love for movies
So
go.
you were geeking out on films like back from early childhood itself.
Oh yeah. And I saw like everything, right? Everything.
What was the first film which uh, which you found remarkable where your
The
journey started?
the profound, like the first memory for me of like an astounding film that just like stood out was Jurassic Park. So Jurassic Park came
Jurassic
out in
Park.
'93, right?
Yeah.
And I saw it around that time, like a bootleg version
Yeah.
of Jurassic Park, right?
Yeah.
I must have been six, 6 or 7 at the
Yeah.
time, right? I had seen movies before, but I
Mm.
have no recollection of them, right? I remember watching like
Okay.
Roja. Roja came out in 92, 92,
92. 92.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have impact. Roja was like a impactful movie because that kid should not have been watching Roja, first of all, right? But I saw it
Too
anyways.
real for a kid, huh?
Too real for a kid, and I loved it. I loved it. But Jurassic Park had like a big impact because it showed like what could be done, right?
Mm.
What
Mm.
could be done. It's Spielberg, obviously, and like there's dinosaurs in the movie, and it's
Mm.
everything like a kid would enjoy. But
Yeah.
what just blew me away was there was not a single dull moment in the movie, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a
Absolutely.
yeah. So it goes like
I, I
on.
I I actually watched it like 4 or 5 times in the theaters, um, and it was playing in both Hindi and English at the time. And you know, this like 93, 94 we are talking about. It was probably the first experience of an adventure park before having seen an actual adventure park.
Right.
That's the kind of experience. It was exhilarating every time with every watching. And I could still watch the film, the first part at least, again. That's the beauty it has.
Right,
I do
exactly.
recall though the films from even before, something around the early 90s, like that uh, Dil and Hina and
Right.
Maine Pyar Kiya, like
What was the
some
first
fragments.
movie? What was the first movie that you saw in the theaters?
That was actually Hina.
Yeah.
So it was
I
like,
was really, Hina was like so upsetting for me as a kid, right? All of the things that were happening, right? He's getting like
yeah,
lost, and he's like, yeah, but it was
yeah,
a very
tragedy
special
is
movie.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite a fascinating story there. So what happens is, I get back from school and do not find my mom there, and that was like the first time because it was like Hina was 91, I think,
Hmm.
and that would have been like Montessori years and something like that. Coming back from school, and school was in itself a very new thing. It hadn't become very comfortable of a setting already. So to not find my mom when I got back, and I came to know that everybody has gone to watch a film in the theater, and I did not know that experience, what it meant to be in a theater. But all I cared for was ki, I made a huge ruckus, and one of my uncles, so he was supposed to babysit me while everybody returned. I just became too much, and he had to take me to the theater, and we arrived there something like after some of that movie had passed, like
Right.
close to the interval or something like that. And that's the first recollection of being in a movie theater.
Oh, wow. So you fought your way into a movie theater.
Yeah.
Right, right. Unfortunately for me, the first movie that I saw in theater wasn't a very remarkable one. Nobody really remembers that movie anymore. It was the movie called Sangeet. Um,
Sangeet, Jackie Shroff and Madhuri Dixit.
right. It
Yeah,
wasn't a very good movie.
yeah,
But that's the first one that I saw in the theaters.
yeah,
And at that time, I remember like enjoying a lot, right? Like a big screen and watching
yeah,
movies. And I was
yeah,
already into movies, right? So I
right,
had a blast then too. Yeah.
yeah,
So from then to then like eventually growing up, right? Started to like Jurassic Park like was the first taste for me into like non-Indian films,
mm,
so to speak, right? So that was like the next venue, and it is for a lot of us, right?
mm,
That we get into these like some of the English language movies. Sometimes it's through like animation or Disney. Sometimes it's like through like some mega budget movie that's coming your way, right?
right,
So and then also in early 90s, India opened up
mm,
itself to like the free market, right?
mm.
And MTV came, and all of the like
Disney, like all of the Disney stuff from back
yeah,
in the 90s, like the Indianized versions of Aladdin and Chip and Dale,
right, Tailspin,
DuckTales,
yeah,
Tailspin.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right. So we were the perfect age for the demographic that they were trying to target, right? And this is like just the doors being open to that, right? So we were the first demographic that
generation.
the
Yeah,
generation that experienced the westernization through
yeah,
media in that way, right?
yeah, yeah.
So while
Well,
there's like,
let's maybe think of it as globalization rather than
well,
westernization. So,
yes,
yeah,
but I guess like that's the flip side. The westernization may be the flip side of it, but the globalization began for
yeah,
all of us, right? Just like opening us to like different perspectives, different points of view, different ways of looking at the world.
yeah.
Um, and we also started to see, at least for me, I got like more and more and more into like the mega budget movies first,
Mm,
but then eventually growing up realizing that um, they were like quite formulaic, you know. They were like a very good movies sometimes. For example, The Matrix,
mm,
1999,
mm.
already like in my it's beginning teenage years,
Beginning teens. Yeah.
right? Um, and a brilliant movie, right? A mega
Mm,
blockbuster, but
yeah.
also a very intelligent movie, right?
Mm,
So those type of movies just like kind of just made me see that there's intelligent work possible
mm,
that can also be entertaining, right?
right.
That doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah.
And I just started to kind of lean more towards like the intellectual or the artsy side of the cinema, because
Mm,
again, my mom was into like the Indian art house movies for like a long time, like into Shyam Benegal and all of
mm,
the Sai Paranjpe and off the road movies, right?
yeah.
Um, so she had like kind of given us that taste too, right? And my
Mm,
dad loved the masala. Like his favorite movie is Sholay, which he's seen like a ton of times, right?
yeah.
And so I got the best of both worlds that way too.
Mm,
There was some time in the middle where I got like really snobbish because I thought like all of the masala movies were just like crap, right?
mm,
But
mm,
but I've also come to see the beauty in this filmmaking process and how much work
right.
goes into it, right? It's
Yeah.
somebody's
Yeah.
like a lot of people come and put their sweat and blood into it, right? To make that
That's
happen.
actually where the maximum attempts are being taken in any age, right? To create a mass appeal, a massy thing. It's it there's magic for sure in it.
Right.
One can't stick to any formula to deliver something which clicks with the masses. We just don't know what is going to happen, and it's so sensitive to time also. Like
Right.
something which might have worked today might not work like even a month later. That's how fast things have gotten. Maybe
Right.
next week itself,
Right.
right? Things like, for example, top of the mind comes via this Kolaveri D. That becoming a huge viral phenomena, 12, 13 years ago. Who could have foreseen that this is what one should do? It only becomes easier to understand maybe post fact, that yeah, it makes complete sense. Or Gangnam Style, for example, like any of those things. Those are still in the music scene, but sure, in the film sphere of things as well, right?
Right. 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 And some people are like really good at kind of sensing that pulse of the time and context that they are in, right?
Mm,
And like,
mm,
for example, like what would be marketable, what would be entertaining, and what would like
yeah,
say, sell. Some people are like really good at that. For
yeah, yeah,
example, like my partner and I were talking about this the other day. The actor director Jon Favreau, right, who's in the Iron Man movies or has been
right,
in
right,
Avengers
right,
and stuff, right? So
yeah.
so if you pay attention to his profile, like our IMDb profile,
Starting
he
with swingers in
that too,
96.
but like lately, what he has done is remarkable.
Mm,
So he was the director for the first two Iron
first
Man
art.
movies,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's the movie that launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe,
Correct.
right? So,
Yeah,
and then he's been like an executive producer or in different roles throughout these
yeah,
movies, right? So he's been guiding them from behind.
yeah.
Then you see what else he has done. When Disney started to transition from their animated movies to live action movies, when they were doing like the Jungle Book and the Lion King and
Mm,
all of those versions, look who directed Jungle Book and Lion King, right?
yeah.
Jon Favreau.
John Favreau again. Okay, I didn't
Okay,
know about this.
now when Star Wars tries to reboot and bring in like television series spin-offs, right?
Mm,
The Disney Mandalorian,
mm,
Boba Fett,
mm.
look up who is the creator of the show. Is
Wow.
Jon Favreau. Some
So
people are so
he,
good at just catching that pulse and just
mm,
giving people what they need, right? And it may be like a certain demographic, but they're good at that.
right, right, right. Wow, wow. Beautiful trivia over there. Like, kind of makes me think of John Favreau as like the transformation guy, in Hollywood in maybe the last 20 years. How big today is the Marvel universe, the franchisee, and Disney both. So, looking at that, and he being there, the start of both of them, like in during that transformation era.
Right, right.
Amazing, amazing.
And even like these three examples, they're all like under Disney now, right?
Mm, mm,
So Marvel, Disney itself, and then
mm,
Star Wars, they're all
mm,
owned by Disney now. They Marvel wasn't owned by Disney back when Iron Man came out, obviously,
mm,
but
mm.
they must have seen something in his
Yeah,
approach, right? Hey, they're clearly calling him in to like fix
yeah,
stuff, right?
yeah,
Or like get the ball rolling whenever they're down. So there are people like that who kind of have this sense of the market and like what would sell and how to sell it, right?
mm, mm,
Like how to pace it, what story to tell, how many episodes, when to deliver. Like they have a very good sense of the pulse, the people in the market.
yeah,
And then
right,
there
right.
are folks who have this approach to cinema as a form of expression,
Mm.
right? That these are the Satyajit Rays, the Martin Scorsese's, right? These are
Topskis.
the Sai Paranjpes, right? The
Yeah,
Tchaikovskys, right? These are the people who honestly don't care whether
mm,
their movies are gonna do well or not, right?
yeah,
They have to
mm,
say that oh yeah, it's gonna be fine or we yeah, but these are the movies that usually go to like film festivals, right?
mm,
And they make their acclaim and recognition that way, right?
mm,
They make their
mm,
money that way. That these films from Satyajit Ray, the Apur trilogy, they have gone to like Berlin film festivals and like maybe
Right,
even
right.
Cannes Film Festival. I could be wrong
And
about that.
they often become a cult phenomena, even despite not seeing much commercial success at the time of their release. They go on to become cult phenomena, and later on, years later, they might become bigger than any of the films from the era they were released. So
Right,
there's
right.
that beauty to being authentic in that approach, freeing oneself of um, any commercial constraints while designing the concept, the screenplay itself.
Right, right. And so the artistic side of the cinema, it really I really find it attractive, right? I think
Mm.
that's a beautiful thing because all of the films that I've seen, so I fell in love with like world cinema in this process all this time, right? As we were talking earlier about like going from
Right.
like the mainstream to others and artsy. So I fell in love with world cinema, and I tried to watch like something from like every country, every continent as much as I could, or at least find something. So Japanese post-war movies, right? French New Wave cinema,
Yeah,
Italian neorealism, American film noir, uh,
huh.
right? Oh my God, that has to be the best genre ever, film noir, right?
Yeah.
But when you not but and when you mix film noir with like a western, right, or like a mystery, it just becomes like so dynamic and so
Yeah.
beautiful. It shows us an aspect of humanity that hadn't been captured before, right? And so films like that, I had never seen before. So I was
Yeah.
just blown away by stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Kind of
got
brings to mind something from I don't know if Swingers was John Favreau's debut film. He starred in it, he wrote it, and I think directed it also. Not sure of the direction, but he at least for sure wrote it, and yeah, he was the lead there. So the Vince Vaughn's character. He had a quote during later half of the film which went something to the effect that don't be uh, don't be the PG-13 uh, you know hero, be the X-rated uh, I'm not able to paraphrase it properly because I don't remember much of it. But the essence of it was, rather than being a PG-13 hero, be an X-rated hero, one which the audience does not know that what this character is going to do. They might not be all good. They would be some bits of evil in them, some dark shades to their character, and yeah.
right, right.
And
This
that's what makes film noir so beautiful, that
right,
it's we know for sure that something is rotten somewhere, and something is going to come up.
right, right.
Yeah.
I think that's a spot on like observation for film noir. So all characters in film noir would be gray, right? There's
Yeah, yeah,
no fully good people
yeah,
ever,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? And that was like a foundational assumption in film noir, right? That why are we assuming that people are good, right?
Yeah, rather
And
than
that
whites and blacks,
Mhm.
the gray, spectrum of things. Yeah, that's what
Right,
makes film noir so beautiful.
right. And I think that's also something that you would see in people like Satyajit Ray,
Hmm.
or like his films, that even if his characters are like good, right?
Hmm.
But there's like strengths and weaknesses, right? That there's
Hmm.
like pros and cons, that there's things that they do well, that there are things that they don't.
Hmm. Um, uh,
So this thing about the types of filmmakers like Satyajit Ray, right? So those type of filmmakers have really stood out to me over time, right? So the more I reflect back on cinema that has stood out to me, the more types of folks are those who make movies for the art of it, right?
Mm.
So what I want to share with you today is this list that I made many years ago,
Yes.
called Why I Love Movies. I created it 13 years ago. There's 476 movies in here in this list. I haven't updated this list in uh, a few months. I think I haven't added any of the recent films that have come out, right? But what I'm gonna do is only kind of talk about like the top 10 or 20, or show you the top 10 or 20, and then
Sure.
explore some of the filmmakers that you would see repeating in that list,
Mm.
even in the top, right? So let me share this again with you real quick, okay? All right. So on your screen, you would see this list. And
I
the
see it.
first
Yeah.
film obviously is the world of Apur, right? Or in
Yeah.
Bengali, it's known as Apur Sansar.
Mm.
Now notice here that this one came out in 1959, right? So that's the third of the trilogy. The first came out in 55. So in 4 years, he made 3 movies, and I think he made like other movies between that too. So he was
Correct.
quite,
Jalsa Ghar and all was in between. Yeah.
right. And we saw Jalsa Ghar in episode 1, and that's just a kind of a
Mm.
callback to if
Yeah.
people are interested in the musical aspect of Satyajit Ray's work too. We have already discussed that a little bit in episode 1. But the interesting thing here is that look at the number of people who have rated this movie on IMDb. It's only 17,000,
Yeah.
right? Only 17,000. Um, as compared to, like, if I were to switch to like a Jon Favreau film here, I still have Jon Favreau because we talked about him. Let's keep it here.
Iron Man 1
Let's
would be in like millions at least.
1.2 million people have rated it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's just the number of people who have rated it.
Correct.
More people may have seen it, right?
Yeah.
And same goes for World of Apu, right? More people may
Mhm.
have seen it, but they haven't rated it here. But these are the type of movies that we're talking of, right? Not the 1.2 million rating ones, the 10 to 20,000 rating ones. And there might be some here and there that may have more, but this is the world of cinema that not a lot of people are exposed to, which is kind of like the desire here to just get like some of the younger Indian kids get interested in some of these movies, that'd be a bonus.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Like the films totally have the power to change the course of one's life, and I'm sure we are going to hear from you how some of these films have had a profound effect on how you've developed as a person. I know of some of the films which have had that effect on me. So, uh, right off the bat, 476 titles in that list itself is quite amazing. So, kudos to you for putting together, and of course, it means that you would have seen. Many multiples of that number. So I personally feel that the films is a great investment of time, and of course, there's only limited number of films all of us are going to be able to see during our lifetimes. But nonetheless, it's a noble pursuit for me because it's bang on in line with the the pursuit of art. Understanding, exploring it, and appreciating it. Kudos to you for putting up such a comprehensive list, and which goes back to 13 years ago and still is being maintained. Um, so let's hear from you. Let's dive
Yeah. No,
into
thank you for
the.
saying that. Dude, lists have become like uh, lists are a really important thing if you are into films, right?
Mm,
So on this note, I want to give a shout out to this website called icheckmovies.com.
mhm,
I came across this website when it was just being developed, right? The
uh-huh,
developers were in Sweden, and I was a
mm,
part of this online film community, which was the only community I had at that time. And I made some really good friends from all over the world, right? Somebody's in Australia, somebody's in like Faroe Islands. It's in the British Isles, by the way, near Denmark. It's people from all over the world watching all types of movies, right? So I am asking recommendations for Australian movies or like Danish movies, and they are asking recommendation. And we would like talk to each other. We watch movies and like share with each other. We even would hop in on like video conferencing softwares and watch movies together. Like we watched Sholay together, which was bizarre because I had to explain a lot of things. But
which is all right, but kind of with what you're saying just makes me miss the old internet also. The 2000s internet with forums and the the way of connecting with uh, people and the way internet was just so different.
right, yeah, and
Yes,
it used to be more positive and optimistic, and the internet has a big space now, so can be overwhelming sometimes.
it's
But it was important,
understandably more
yeah,
chaotic, I guess. Yeah,
right, like the world. But I think what's important here is to find your community, right?
correct.
The community that gives you, and obviously being grounded in reality, because there's a lot of communities out there that are unhinged from reality too. Um,
Yeah.
but coming back to our main point here, so I check movies. They have a bunch of lists, right, on different types of good movies from across the world. So if people are interested in getting recommendations for what to watch, icheckmovies.com is a great place to start. You can make like an account for this free, and you can keep track of the movies that you're watching. And they also give you like awards for finishing lists.
Acha.
So it's good incentive to keep
That's
going.
pretty cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For
That's
film nerds, that's like a great feature to have.
Yeah, that's where I learned about a lot of different movies.
Uh,
In fact, also from like India that I didn't know about. Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
And I'd like to give a shout out at this point, in a similar vein to, I think this used to be a page, probably still active, Theory of Cinema, I think. They would put out different lists, and I would go on to the extent of when the torrents were still an active thing, to put together a folder of all those films in a particular list, let's say. I recall getting to some of the French stuff because of that. Yeah.
right. So
Please go on. Yeah,
yeah. So there's resources and communities like that out there. If you are interested in films and want to go deeper into the art aspect of it, and want to go deeper into the humanitarian aspect of it, and the beauty that comes out of that work, I check movies is a good place to start. They also have like forums and stuff where you can connect with community. What you
right.
see on your list on your screen here is my list of those 476 movies. The first one up top is obviously World of Apu. I'm going to scroll through a little bit and kind of talk, and then show you some
Sure.
clips that I want to show you as an example.
Yeah.
So
And
you see,
you say that the list is in an order.
oh yeah, it's diligently been
Okay, right.
ordered, and yes,
Diligently.
yes. And I have moved things up and down, right? There used to be movies like at one point Godfather was up here, right?
Uh-huh.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
It's on the list still, but
Kind of
it's
akin to the IMDb 250 itself.
yeah.
Godfather being in in
IMDb
the
top
top 10.
250 was the first list where I started, right? That was
Likewise, yeah.
me and some friends challenging each other to see who can watch more movies from that list.
Yeah.
And I just, you know how I am, right? I was
Yeah.
watching 8 movies a day. 8 movies a day, back to back. I'll start my day, I'll start a movie, and I'll just be eating my breakfast and watching movies back to back to back to back. And my friends were like, there is no way we can catch up on you. And I just like sped off, and I haven't looked back. I became so prolific in watching movies, but I watched so many good movies during that time. All of these movies are mostly from that period. So you see, World of Apu shows up, which is Satyajit Ray, right?
Hmm.
And the second
And
movie,
just before we proceed, would you want to tell us, just give us a bit of context on your approach to putting together this list?
ooh,
It's diligently ordered, organized. So what has, like, anything to bear in mind in terms of what
right,
would make it towards the top of the list, what would make it to the list, what would make it towards the bottom of the list?
right.
Anything on that? Anything on the context?
That's a very good question. That's an excellent question, and it's a hard one to answer because first of all, rating movies is not something a genuine film lover enjoys. Because it's on one hand you are saying it's art and it's subjective and it's beautiful, and then you say at the next step it's a 9 on 10, right? Which is giving it a score. So I personally am not a big fan of that, right? So, but because IMDb asks you to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, I have my own system of what counts as a 1 and what counts as a 10. And this used to like make me really mad a few years ago, is that I would see a lot of people who were like not as deep into this as us, would sometimes show up on the forum and it's like, oh, I love this movie, 10 on 10. Oh, this movie wasn't good, 1 on 10. And there's like no gray area, right? It's either like good or bad, and it's either like full or not. So there's rarely any movies here for me that would be like a full 10 on 10, right? I think I would say Apur Sansar is a 10 on 10 for me, right? Some of the top movies here are like a 10 on 10 for me, but most of the movies would be like a 9 on 10 or 8 on 10 on this list, right?
Right.
So whatever I rate as a 8 or above is on this list. Okay. Whatever is like a 7 or below doesn't make to the list. Okay. So to give you like a little bit of that sense, like what's the difference between like a 10 or a 8? A 10 for me has to be like perfect in all aspects, obviously, in terms of like directing, cinematography, acting, music, the screenplay. All of those things have to be like perfectly done. And perfect is obviously not a thing in art. It's just like a way of saying like what hits you the right way.
Yeah, one's perspective on perfect, let's say. Yeah.
Right. So it's perfect for me, right? I love the movie so much that I don't see any flaw in it, right? So which is a 10 on 10 for me. But
So 10 on 10 is no flaws whatsoever.
No flaws for me. It's beautiful for me. I would watch this movie anytime, and I would always love it. Right? It's that type of movie for me. There have been some movies that haven't stood that as a test of time, right? That weren't perfect anymore, and then I would bring them down to like a 9 or an 8, and that's how they go down in the list, right? That's what happened to Godfather. Godfather is a phenomenal film, but it's not perfect for me anymore in that way that it used to be. Right. And that's not anything to do with the movie. It's just that I'm not that person anymore that reflects with the masculinity in that movie that way that I used to. Right. So that's how it's changed for me. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, in the range of like a 1 to 4, that's where there's movies that have just like that could be well-made films, but to me, they either bother me or upset me, or they have an agenda that I don't appreciate, right? So I would rate them really low, right? Or they're just like bad movies, right? Really crappy movies. So I have that too. And I have seen more of those than I've seen more of the good ones, because I've seen like my graph visually charted out. I've made like a visual chart for the ratings that I've done on IMDb, because IMDb lets you download your data. So I made like a graph for it, and I saw like a skewed graph that was more leaning towards like the lower scale movies.
Like
Anyway, so
distribution.
right. And I also have a peculiar way. There are some movies that I can see are well made, but they don't hit me necessarily, right? So I would give them like an 8 or a 7, depending on like how it's feeling in that moment. And that's something that upset a lot of my friends. It's like, if you don't like it, why are you giving it an 8?
Yeah.
And I would say because it doesn't matter that I don't like it. I can see that it's a beautifully made film.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I give it an 8. I cannot in good conscience give it a 5 or a 4, right? Because it's an 8 movie, clearly.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
so that's how I that's how I approached it. And I know I'm showing a lot of nerd here, but I'm proud of that. But these are the type of films that are made to the 10 on 10 or 9 on 10, right? So Satyajit Ray, Yasujiro Ozu, Akira Kurosawa, these are the filmmakers that would show up a lot. Jean-Pierre
Right.
Melville. There's some off here and there. Martin Scorsese comes up. Taxi Driver is number 7, right?
Mhm.
Paris, Texas is number 6. Those are the two.
Also, the first post 70s film features with Paris, Texas, and
Right, right.
Taxi Driver.
Both American movies,
Interestingly,
right?
yeah, Paris, Texas. Yeah, yesterday only. It's just some bits of it.
Oh, really?
Let's go.
That's so,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
We'll talk about it, I guess.
I guess, yeah, I love that
Yeah.
movie. I have like a small clip from that movie too. And then there's Wages of Fear, which is a French film, Henri Jacques Clouseau. This movie, I would argue, is the best thriller.
Mhm.
Best thriller. So the movie is really about like these 4 men who just don't have a job. They're in South American village stuck somewhere, right? And they get this assignment to take a truck of nitroglycerin shipment, and they have to go through like really treacherous path. And if the thing is that if anything happens, like if a minor bump, it's gonna explode, right?
Right.
So the movie is so gripping, but what's happening is they're just like driving, right? So it shows you how it's you can produce gripping, thrilling cinema without like big budget, without like flashy
Right.
visual effects, right? So fine film. And again, number 9, Seven Samurai shows up. A lot of people know about Seven Samurai. It's Akira Kurosawa's most famous film. I for with that respect, I have it as the highest of his films, but more of his movies are gonna show up in the list. Then number 10 is Detective Story. William Wyler. William Wyler is fine director. Kirk Douglas is in it. Michael Douglas's father. Um, again, Detective Story is a for me a good example of like a film noir with the perfect mystery and suspense, and it's a detective. So there's like that whole espionage angle and like yeah. So it's just these movies are like so rich in the stories that they're telling. Yet when you watch them, they're like slow paced and there's like gaps and silences. If you go back to the video that we just saw from Apur Sansar, there's like whole like 5 seconds in there or 10 seconds in there where they're just like looking at each other. There's no music,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
There's
There's
actual
visual poetry.
silence. There's
Yeah.
visual poetry, but there's actual silence, right? And I was just thinking about this yesterday, that this is something you cannot do with music. You cannot have like 10 seconds of silence, right? And people have tried like stuff like that, right? But like with movies, you can have like long periods of silences and still communicate, right? So I really find that profound and moving. So you asked me earlier.
And by the way, just on that particular note, the recent explorations in Drupad have, kind of changed my view on the importance of silence in music. So that is something we would get into at
Ooh,
another time. But
ooh,
Drupad really does that. It's uh, minimal in terms of its um you know instrument play or vocal notes, and relies a lot on the silence between the notes in the music.
wow.
So that's for another time. But yes, in general, films are able to do that, and music is not.
Right.
I
I mean,
agree.
but that's a beautiful reminder, right? How there's like silence between the notes. I guess I didn't think of it like that. Um, but I was thinking more in terms of like how music by design cannot do that, right? You're trying to produce music, so you're not producing silence. But the way you put it, I think that's beautiful, because what would be music if there were not silences between, right? So
Right.
so that's beautiful, beautiful. You
Interspersing of silence and music, and in case of films, they have another dimension altogether, which is the visuals,
right,
which is something that traditionally music has not had. Today's music is more of visual music only, but films have always had that. They have had the medium of visuals, which allows the space to create visual poetry. So even when there's no audio going on, there might be a lot going on the screen.
right, right.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
guess there's that intentionality, right?
Mm.
Like when not to have music,
Right.
because he has musicians, right? And again,
Mm.
it's Pandit Ravi Shankar who did
Yeah.
the music for these movies. So
Correct.
and there is him playing the music in the background, but there's intentional choices of silences
Mm.
to kind of divert our attention to a certain aspect, right? If there is no music,
Mm.
there's nothing like drawing your attention to that. So
Correct.
there's things like that that directors do intentionally to
Mm.
capture attention and take it in a certain way, right? Or make you feel a certain way.
Mm.
So on that note, you asked me earlier too about what types of movies have like kind of moved me.
Mm.
And one clip that I was scared to put on this list is because I was worried that I'm gonna cry, because
Mm.
I cry every time I see it. I put it
Mm.
on this list yesterday and I cried again. So that's the clip that I'm gonna show next, and I'm gonna try not to cry. It's the final scene from movie Apur Sansar. Okay.
Okay.
And that would be kind of like our wrap up for the Satyajit Ray clips, at least, so we
Mhm,
can
mm.
move to some other filmmakers. Okay, so here's one more.
Mm.
This is the last scene from the movie, and to give a little bit of context to viewers, and spoiler alert. So, like I said earlier, Apur Sansar, the Apur trilogy is actually a story about loss, right? So, in the first part, in Pather Panchali, he loses somebody who's very close to him. That's his
Mm.
sister.
Mm.
In Aparajito, he loses his mom.
Mm.
And in Apur Sansar, he loses his wife. So
Yeah.
he just can never get that feminine love in his life for a long period of time, right? And he
Mm.
keeps
Mm.
losing it, and it changes him as a person, right? It just like chips into his
Mm.
humanity and his spirit a little
Mm.
bit every now and then. So
Mm.
what you're gonna see in this next clip, the
Mm.
last clip
Mm.
from the trilogy, is
Mm.
a broken, dejected man,
Mm.
right? Who's just like done with life, right? So
Mm.
that's the context that you have to put
The
in.
heightened sense of loss after losses in the first two parts of the trilogy, where losing the sister and then losing the mother.
Right,
Wow. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so those are the humanitarian aspects of the story, right? But there's
Mm.
also like a social commentary that's always going on in these movies, which is the thing that I love about movies. I personally feel that filmmakers are responsible for reflecting society to society, right?
Right. Time
And
and
that
again, they've done that. They do that till date. Yeah.
Right, right. And it doesn't have to be like an artsy movie, right? People have done
Mm.
that on a mainstream level. Some people are
Yeah.
really good at, like Lagan is a good example that you can make like an entertaining movie and include social issues in it
Right.
and make money off of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Manoj Kumar used to do that, right? He would
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
blockbuster movies that were always about like social issues. In fact, more of our movies uh, from post-independence have always been about social issues,
Mm.
always been about social issues. You take like Rishikesh Mukherjee, you take
Mm.
Guru Dutt, you take anybody,
Mm.
anyone, right? They
Right.
always a social aspect. Either they're talking about caste, they're talking about like class, they're talking about gender, like some social
Mm.
status is always,
Correct.
always in, right?
Correct.
Which is kind of faded away from our movies. We don't talk about like social issues the way we used to, but
Yeah.
some people are still doing that job quite intelligently. Anyways, so back to our context for this clip. So this is the dejected man who has suffered loss over and over again. And we also saw in the previous clip that he doesn't make a lot of money, right? So
Mm.
his work isn't going well. So he has been a
Mm.
failure, so to
Yeah.
speak, in that
Yeah.
way all of his life, right? So with that context, let's watch this one.
এই গয়নাগুলো আপনার কাছেই থাক, কাজলকে যদি বোর্ডিং এ টোডিং এ দিতে হয়। আমি পুলুকে আরেকবার বলে দেখবো, আপাতত কিছুদিন কষ্ট করে ওকে আপনার কাছেই রাখতে হবে। আমি আসি।
বাপ হয়ে ছেলের উপর জোর করবার কি কোনো অধিকারই তোমার নেই? ওই তো একরত্তি ছেলে, নিয়ে যাও না জোর করে।
না, সে আমি পারবো না।
তুমি কিছুই পারবে না, সে আমি আগে থেকেই জানতাম তুমি পারবে না।
কি চাও কাজল? কিছু বলবে?
তুমি কোথায় যাচ্ছ?
তুমি আসবে আমার সঙ্গে?
তুমি কলকাতায় যাচ্ছ?
যদি যাই তুমি আসবে?
আমার বাবার কাছে নিয়ে যাবে?
নিশ্চয়ই।
বাবা আমায় বকবে না?
কেন বলবে কাজল?
আমায় ফেলে চলে যাবে না?
কখনো না।
তুমি কে?
তোমার বন্ধু। তুমি আসবে আমার সঙ্গে?
কাজল, কাজল,
চলে এসো কাজল, চলে এসো, চলে এসো।
কাজলা।
দাদু বকবে।
দাদু জানতে পারবে না, দাদুকে আমি বলবো না। এসো। আর কত দূরে নিয়ে যাবে মোরে?
Wow. Wow.
I thought I wouldn't cry. And so there's so much beauty here, so phenomenal cinema here, so much to learn. Like just so he had given up, right? That he already gave his all the money or jewelry that he had, just like give it and keep it and like use it to educate his son. That's his son, right? His own son.
Yeah.
And he's running away. He's just going, he's leaving, he's once again he's abandoning because he has no hope that he can be a good father, or there's a fear that he's again gonna lose and he can't just bear to lose again.
Right.
And when the kid starts to follow him, and the moment he offers him a choice that, do you want to come with me? Suddenly Dadu appears from the background and clearly putting him in a situation where he has to choose, right?
Yeah.
The kid has to choose. That's so beautiful, right? That's just timing of like when the other character comes in and the way they're visually like spaced, right? There's
Yeah.
distance between them and there's like equal,
Right.
almost equal distance between like him and the Dadu and the kid, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that the visualization of it is so
Mm,
important. And then,
mm,
then there was again silence and only wind blowing when he's
yeah.
following, right? So,
Yeah.
so all of that is done so intentionally.
Mm,
And then see the way they are talking, right? The kid suspects that he is
mm,
his father. He doesn't know
yeah.
that, but he
Yeah.
suspects that. Why
Mm,
follow this stranger?
mm,
Why follow this stranger, right? But he's asking like, and the notice when he asks, he's talking about like, my dad is gonna be mad at me, right?
yeah.
Will he be mad at me, right?
Yeah.
And then he says, who are you,
Yeah.
right? And he doesn't say that I'm your father. He says I'm
Yeah.
your friend.
Yeah. I'm your
Your,
friend. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
tomar bandhu. Um, man, so beautiful, so beautiful.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah,
And amazing you brought out the timing. Had the grandpa showed up just a few seconds earlier, the kid might already be in somewhat an intimidated state to not even consider or indulge in that
exactly.
offer to accompany the stranger along to Calcutta. And had it been a few seconds later, then the impact would just not have been there because the decision is already has already been made. It's the beauty there, the conflict in the mind of the little child, and how that small decision has the power to just change the entire story of Apu. Even though I haven't seen the film, but I'm able to see the how beautiful of a conclusion this seems to be to what is such a celebrated trilogy in the history of cinema, really.
Mhm. Yeah, and you see like how Apu, um, you have not seen him smile, right? In the
Mm.
movie, at least like in the first scene when we saw with he's with Sharmila Tagore, he's upset, right? He's tensed,
Mm.
he's worried, he's thinking that she's working too much,
Insecure, yeah, yeah,
insecure, right? He's like not happy.
yeah,
Um, and even in the last scene, as he's leaving, he's dejected, he's
yeah,
down, he's depressed. But the moment he sees that possibility, right, that the kid
yeah,
is showing interest, and the moment Dadu comes, he's like, yeah, come on. Dadu won't
yeah,
know, he won't be angry, right? And he
yeah,
gets like so desperate suddenly that he's like
yeah,
trying to lure him to come.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like that spark of hope that you see in him,
yeah,
you
yeah.
see it for the first time in the movies, actually.
Wow, wow. So beautiful context there to how to understand and appreciate Satyajit Ray's filmography, and in particular Apu trilogy. Uh, I'll you know this adds up to more reasons for me to visit it. I have a thing where like a lot of the stuff that is heavily celebrated, which I find in a state that is already very celebrated, I would park it for some time later, kind of like get it to age furthermore, like and lot of Satyajit Ray's work happens to be in that bucket for me.
Right. I think
Star
he's
Wars, for that matter, like Star Wars is like I know about the characters. I've seen it in pop media. I see memes on the internet. I I know some of the characters there. Still, like I've preserved Star Wars for some time when something as simple would be there to blow my mind away.
right. So I wouldn't put them in the same degree of
Yeah,
impact
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
essence, right? But I think so. With Satyajit Ray, you can take any film that he has made over his career, and you'd find a gem, right? You can't say that about a lot of people.
What's beautiful is beautiful always. This from some film, I forget which, but yeah.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
This is was the parting words of some character. I don't know. Yeah, yeah. But on that note, you mentioned how the first part of the trilogy is from 1955, Apur Sansar, and the third installment is from 1959, and in between that he made films like Jalsa Ghar as well. So, you know, such remarkable prolific run of years over there we see, uh, creating stuff, creating art which stands the test of time, and creating so much of it, like the kind of flow, the kind of mind space which Satyajit Ray would have been during those years, is just something inspirational.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. On this note, let's th this be our bookmark for Satyajit Ray, because I don't think this is the last time we are talking about him, but I do want to talk about some other people too. So when we return, we'll jump into a fine Japanese filmmaker that very few people know about, Yasujiro Ozu. Okay.
All right, let's do that.
Okay. So
So,
yeah, so that was a brief introduction to Satyajit Ray, or like a dive into the beautiful world of Satyajit Ray, as we saw. So he's, like I said, one of my favorite filmmakers of all times. But another person I want to talk about is this Japanese filmmaker Yasujiro Ozu. So Yasujiro Ozu is the less famous name as compared to Akira Kurosawa. Akira Kurosawa is a more renowned name when it comes to Japanese filmmaking, right? So
right.
people know about Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, Sanjuro, Throne of Blood. And again, with him too, you can pick any movie that he has made, and you'd find a gem, right? So Akira Kurosawa was also that type of filmmaker. The similarity between Kurosawa and Ozu is that they're both the same time period, right? They started their work like just pre-Second World War and led into their success post-World War. It's important to bring the Second World War here because we are talking about Japan, right? What has happened to Japan was, I mean, for some reason, if people don't know, America had dropped 2 nuclear bombs on them, right? Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And there was devastation and or whatnot. How do you, as filmmaker, respond to that, right? What type of films do you make? Different filmmakers went different routes. That is the time when Godzilla, or as it's known as in Japan, Gojira, that's when Gojira was made. And Gojira is actually about nuclear holocaust, right? It's the impact of nuclear weapons. So that was one way. That's where the monster movies come out of, right? It's that post-war reflection and expression that gave us the monster genre like Godzilla. But also, what people like Kurosawa did was they did not talk about war, but they talked about things that were, like human condition and like humanitarian issues, or like our problems like in general. And what he did beautifully was he situated most of his movies in like the samurai era, which was like had nothing to do with like the modern era anyways, right? So there were no similarities with that. So you can take like Rashomon or the Seven Samurai, and all of these movies are like samurai era movies. But what Ozu did was something completely different. He stayed in the modern, like the contemporary time of that era, but he showed the everyday, monotonous, just regular life. Right? So if you want to compare him with someone, this is not a good comparison, but like the similar type of person in Indian movies could be like Rishikesh Mukherjee, because the movies are so simply made, right? There's simple people doing simple things, living in simple settings, and having like just like regular problems, you know. He
Middle class stuff. And
right, middle class stuff, right? And Ozu is a similar way, but with less of a humor. Of course, he has like some comedy here and there in his movies, but not like Mukherjee, which is why I'm not like trying to make like a one-on-one comparison. But that's the closest you can get to that type of like a sense. Okay, so rather than boring you all too much, I have this clip here. Again, a shout out to Criterion Collection. And if you don't know what Criterion Collection is, Criterion Collection, they are they are brilliant. What they do is they just like pick these types of like gems and they put them in their library of collection. And if you want to dive into any like guaranteed good cinema, start with Criterion Collection. It's just their collection of like exceptional cinema over time, and they save movies and they digitize them. They what's the word I'm looking for? You know, they try to preserve lost cinema, right? And people like Scorsese again have been like working with them. There's like a really old movie from India. I'm forgetting the name. It was lost for a long time, and Criterion Collection and Scorsese together found like a rotting film somewhere in Hyderabad or somewhere, and they restored it.
Wow.
So it's stuff like that that Criterion Collection has done for cinema. So a big shout out to them. And this video that I'm going to show is their homage to why they love Yasujiro Ozu's movie Late Spring. So the movie, I'm going to show you, this is the movie that's the number 2 on my list, Late Spring. So, and also on that note, his movies can be confusing because his movies are all kind of named after these different seasons: late spring, early summer, early spring, late summer. It's hard like which one is which. But Late Spring is the one we're gonna watch a homage video for. Okay.
All right.
そろそろお嫁に行かなきゃならない時だし。
私それじゃ嫌なの。
そんなこと言ってたらあんた一生お嫁に行きやしないよ。
それでもいいの。ねえお父さん、お願い。このままにさせといて。
お父さんも今まであんまりお前を重宝に使いすぎて。
長い。
So I think you can tell from the homage video is that the Late Spring movie is about this father and daughter. Again, played by this guy is Chushu Ryu. Chushu Ryu was a recurring actor in Yasujiro Ozu movies, right? You would find him somewhere, right? And the actress that you saw playing his daughter, it's Setsuko Hara, who was the biggest star of that time. She was known for her like a girl next door type of a look. Anybody could relate to her, right? She was simple and beautiful, but not like in an inaccessible way, which made her like a daughter-in-law. Those characters were like very believable when she played them.
Could we say like a Kubala equivalent for Japanese cinema? Or
sorry, what equivalent?
The Madhubala equivalent for
cinema? Actually, that's a good point because I remember reading something like that. That comparison has been made before. So that's very good that you went there. So the Madhubala-like essence is what she gave to that Japanese cinema of that time. The biggest or the most famous Yasujiro Ozu movie is Tokyo Story.
Right.
Now I'll tell you a little bit about Tokyo Story and you tell me what movie that reminds you of. So this movie is of this old aging couple who have their kids living away from them, right? And they've gotten old, they're retired. So what should they do? They want to go visit their kids, but none of the kids are happy keeping them, right? So they say, oh, I'll keep the father, you keep the mother, and now they're separated, right? And they're
So the
here and there.
Bhagwan.
The Bhagwan, right? However, there's also a Hollywood movie that was made in the 30s that has the same story. So the Tokyo Story could have been like a remade version of that Hollywood movie, or it could have been separate. I don't know that personally, but definitely Bhagwan is like being taken from one of them. The Tokyo Story is more famous, at least in like cinema circles, as a film than the other one. So that's also Yasujiro Ozu, by the way. So but you see
And it's
here,
like ultimately there's only so many stories, right? It's just about the treatment of a story, how a story
Right.
is told.
Right.
The stories are the same. So that's what I guess we see with these different versions of the same story.
I guess, right.
Making it.
It's also a story that is very relevant to the Indian context, right? Indian people can relate to that story. So I think films like that should be made again and again in different cultures, in different contexts. They should be made. Like I do see value in remaking. I don't have a problem with like when people remake. It is a problem though when like who remakes it. That makes a big difference, right? If a good filmmaker with a good vision, they can do a really good job at it. So one of the things that I think you may have noticed here with Late Spring, there were no moving shots, right? There's no camera panning, there's no trolley, there's nothing. Even the shots where you saw movement was like camera on the train. So camera is still and stable. It's the train that's moving, right? The shot where they're riding bikes, I think that's the only one, perhaps, maybe not. They're just like standing and they're biking away, or just watching people bike away. So usually he would have sitting stable camera shots, mid-height, or lower than mid-height actually. That would give like a sense of like bigness around the world. So very intelligent and very intentional again in designing and framing. In fact, one of the very well-known artistic filmmakers from Iran, Abbas Kiarostami, he made legendary, right? He made a documentary on Ozu as a homage, and it has no dialogues in it. It's just like standing shots of like nature, or like water dropping, or like stuff like that. And he calls it his homage to Ozu. So he got that essence from him too, of like just being present, right? Being here, being still, exactly, which is such a Japanese way of approaching struggle and challenge, right? Especially again, contextualizing it in the post-war era time, right? Because what is the story here? A daughter and father who are living together and have nobody else in their life, right? She doesn't want to leave because then father would be alone, right? And he wants her to marry because she's sacrificing her life for him, right? And that's it. That's all the story here. So there's like no complex stuff. There's like no big things happening. Like there's nothing like that. But that's the simplicity that he brought, that showed people that there is so much depth and beauty in our everyday simple human interactions.
So true. Yeah.
That's Yasujiro Ozu for you.
Beautiful put.
Let's watch another clip from one of his other movies, Early Spring. This is a full clip, so you can see the pacing, right? Because the homage video didn't help you see the pacing of it. But this video is like the life of an office worker, which was again always a common theme in his movies, right? That the people are going to work and they're like working and they're talking about life, and so he would show like the workplace a lot. He would show homes a lot, schools,
everyday
right?
people, everyday settings.
Exactly, right? Like one of his movies called Ohio, which means good morning, is just about two kids who want TV in the house. And dad says no TV. because it's a distraction, and they go on like a silent protest or something like that. They're like little kids, like really cute little kids. It's a funny movie as hell. But it's just simple things like that, like simple daily problems like that, which is
Finding
why
remarkable in the mundane.
yes, which is why I tried to compare it with like Rishikesh Mukherjee, because he was able to do similar thing, like finding like the beauty in like simple things. Okay, so let's watch this clip that helps us see the pacing of Ozu's work.
ご苦労さん。いや。こんばんは。いや。
三浦も気の毒なことをしたね。
昨夜会ったばかりなんです。こんなことになると思いませんでした。
しかしまあ、あいつも会社員生活の嫌な面を知らないで死んでったんだから、幸せだったかもしれないよ。
ええ。
あいつみたいに無邪気に丸引きの会社に勤めるの喜んでたやつもなかったからね。
そうでしたね。
まあ、そのうちには飽きたろうがね。
いや、あいつは飽きませんよ。
そうかね。そうかもしれないね。それだけにかわいそうなような気もするんだが。しかし、独り身のうちでよかったよ。女房でも持って、子供でもできると、そうそうサラリーマンをありがたがってばかりもいられないからね。子供が増えるほどにはサラリーは増えないしね。いや、三浦は幸せだったかもしれないよ。まあお互いに生きてはいるが、そう幸せだとも思えないからね。
はあ。
So you see the pace there, right? So this was from early spring, and the previous one that I showed was late spring, right? So the names are very similar. But you see, not only the pacing is slow, there's like pauses and silences, right? And there's like background sounds coming from like somebody's working and whatnot. There's still music playing a little bit. But then look at the theme. What are they talking about? They're talking about that it's better to be off dead than to be a working man. Right? So that's the type of like subject that he would approach.
The pains of a working life, and some of the things they were talking about remain true probably till date, and those are timeless things probably. The race comes, or rather the babies come faster than the race.
Right. So this is why like it becomes like such these types of movies, these type of films are so timeless and relevant and acknowledged across like the cinematic circles, is because of this thing that they can do, that they relate to any time period and any human being anywhere in the world, right? Because the underlying issue that they get to is like a human issue or a human condition issue, not necessarily like a Japanese issue.
Correct. And 70 years later here, neither of us coming from a Japanese background or having experienced that, the Japanese way of life particularly, we are able to relate here.
Right.
That's what makes this legendary.
Right. And we have shared the same thing about like Satyajit Ray, like how Martin Scorsese said that like that's the appeal, that was appeal for Satyajit Ray for him, right? And he's not the only one who's all gaga over Satyajit Ray. Like at some point I've heard Steven Spielberg talk about him. Wes Anderson, who I love, always has something in his movies that is an Easter egg for Satyajit Ray. Always. In fact, his production company is called the Indian Paintbrush. He has made a movie called Darjeeling Limited, which is actually lifted from Company Limited, which is Satyajit Ray's movie. And he films it in Satyajit Ray style. He has his picture in the movie. So he loved Satyajit Ray more than any of the other filmmakers that I know. That's the type of, those are the type of filmmakers we're talking about here that have had such an impact. Okay, so I want to show you one more clip. This one is from, let's go, movie number 4 on my list. This movie is a different feel. Okay, we're going in a different feel. So you've seen La Samouraï. Okay, so so Jean-Pierre Melville, this movie is so cool. I think this is the coolest movie that has ever been, right? And then to have Alain Delon, and again, Alain Delon was like a big actor. He's also sexy looking, so he's like everything for like a protagonist.
Like he could have been a James Bond, at the time. I don't know if he ever was considered, but he totally had that kind of a personality. And
right. Yeah, he totally has that personality. La Samurai is a good example of like him playing, he's a hitman, right? And it's like again, a suspense thriller. So there's like a lot of tension in the movie. But yeah, so he's like that type of a personality. And Jean-Pierre Melville is also a fine filmmaker. This is the late 60s French, right? So it's still in the French New Wave era. When people like Jean-Luc Godard are also like making their mark, right? It's right after that. Okay, so let's take a look at this clip, and again, pay attention to the pacing and the intentional style in like what's being shown and what's being hidden. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So
the entire you go first. You go first.
No, you go first. You go first.
One remarkable thing I learned about this film, like every frame is just composed of different shades of gray. Like that's the color tone of the film. The entire film is in gray. It might be an outdoor setting, indoor setting. There might be rain. There might be, irrespective of the environment. It's always done in some tone of gray.
Yeah. And you see, so for the context, like the story is like about a hitman, right? And he's being recognized, or at least he thinks he's being recognized. So he starts to get more and more paranoid and more like corners himself into a space. So you can see that in this whole clip that we saw, there was not a single dialogue, right?
Yeah.
But you can see that paranoia is setting in. He sees a cop and he immediately tries to get out of there, right? Sees the first car, first opportunity, steals that. But while he's stealing it, right, he's not looking at the keys. He's not panicking, right? He's trying to keep his composure. But you see that shot that shows him, he's looking around while he's like trying different keys, right? Like this. And then everything else around is blurry. Even his face is blurry, right? We can't see what's happening, what's coming towards him. There's uncertainty, hence the paranoia, right? And then further, this beautiful woman in a lovely car comes, stops right next to him, shows a little bit of interest in him to see like what's that attractive man doing there. And he has an opportunity, considers it for a second, but he's so paranoid that he just like the fear of being recognized, he just like looks away. Right.
Yeah.
But again, no dialogue necessary to communicate that.
Yeah, yeah. So much storytelling without any single dialogue, and just that scene of the film. And I love this film, by the way. And for me, like I think I quite liberally rate films 10 on 10. So like I might have a lot more 10 on 10 films versus you, is what I suspect, basis how you explained your approach to rating, if we must, of course, any of these films. So La Samurai happens to be a 10 on 10 film for me. The very premise itself, to translate the idea of a warrior from medieval Japan, medieval Oriental world, and which like whatever we might recollect from the philosophy, the idea of a samurai, uh, something which quickly comes to my mind definitely is the discipline, which is what we get to see with the protagonist over here. Uh, the sheer discipline in any small activity, any movement that he's indulging in. Like, for example, if the protagonist was fidgety, it risks, spilling over all those 100 keys he had,
Right.
master keys. But
Right.
he's like dead cool about it. He's
Right.
doing it as if it's his own car.
Right.
Yet the paranoia creates the tension. So it's a samurai in working his way through all kinds of adversities, is what we get to see in the film. Like how would a wounded samurai look like? How would a samurai in combat, when faced with imbalanced adversity, like where the where the samurai has to fight a bigger entity than his own self.
Right.
We get to see all of that. So it's just a beautiful film, and I revisit it every now and then. And great repeat, you know, uh, makes for great repeat viewing as well, because there's always those finer details, whether it's in terms of the camera work, in terms of the suspenseful soundtrack, or like the jazz elements in it. It's the late 60s. So by that time, like very interesting use of jazz throughout the film. Nah, yeah,
Right, right. That's a beautiful description, man. So I think you hit that spot on with the discipline part, right? The movie's called La Samurai, the Samurai. Um, but if you look at the entire movie, it shows like he's so methodical, right?
yeah,
And it's shown in this clip, particularly with the way he approaches that whole key set, right?
yeah.
Calmly puts it down, opens it with one hand, takes one key,
One
tries
by
it,
one.
puts it aside. So he has a method, right? He
Yeah,
has a method. He's putting keys like one next to the other when he's done with them. It's not messy at all, right? So he has a system of going about it. And you would see that throughout the movie that he was disciplined, hence the
right.
samurai. Yeah,
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 yeah.
beautiful.
And beautifully captures the idea of a contract killer. He's not just an ordinary thug, or a killer out to do, like a one-off crime, let's say,
Right,
because he has to use that key set again and again. He is super methodical about the order in which it is going to begin, and how he's going to place those keys which did not work out in that particular car. So if it had been a one time thing, he might have been throwing those keys around, because
right,
he's just escaping for eternity now. But considering he seems aware that he might be doing that thing later on in the day itself, so it has to be very organized and kept and maintained like that.
right, right. Yeah. because that's clearly something that he does every now and then, right? He's carrying that whole bundle with him,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So that's his job, right? He's a professional, and you can see that in his approach. Like he's methodical, he's disciplined. Again, a cool one of the coolest movies that you would see out there. And Jean-Pierre Melville, some of his other work is also as interesting and engaging. Alain Delon himself has done a lot of great films. If you want to check out his acting and actually hear him talk, right?
Tell me a couple of films from both the filmmaker and Alain Delon.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is where you're kind of making me think of spot, which my memory is not that good. So I'm gonna pull up IMDb right here,
Yes, yes,
and name some of the movies from. Let's start with Jean-Pierre Melville first. So, La Samouraï is one. Le Cercle Rouge, the Red Circle, that's another one. I think it's also again Alain Delon. So you get both. There's one called A Cop. Again, Alain Delon and Jean-Pierre Melville, so they kind of work together a lot. And the Good Thief. So there's a bunch of them, and I think he did like what 14, 15, yeah, 14 movies, right? So he's also one of those filmmakers where you would see like an artist at work, right? So him. And the other movie of Alain Delon that I was thinking of, let me pull that up. I have something in mind. So the Samurai is one. Play Soleil is another one. I may be mispronouncing it. The Purple Noon is very good movie. It was remade in Hollywood as Talented Mr. Ripley.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's that movie, Purple Noon. Then there's another movie, The Leopard, which is, I think, Burt Lancaster is also in it. Yes. So Alain Delon and Burt Lancaster. If you don't know Burt Lancaster is a Hollywood actor, again from the 40s, 50s era. Amazing film noir genre, right? Amazing personality. One of my favorite films of his is Sweet Smell of Success with Burt Lancaster and Tony Curtis. Oh my God, phenomenal film noir. Right.
I loved it. It was your recommendation. I watched that film, and I loved every bit of it.
So him, Burt Lancaster, and Alain Delon appeared in this Italian director's film, Luchino Visconti. And the film is The Leopard. It's a fine film again, something to check out. Yeah. Okay. So on that note, let me get back to the movie list because I want to show one more clip before we wrap up.
Sure.
Okay.
And before, since this one particularly from the list so far happens to be a mutual, the 10 on 10 movie or a very favorite film for the both of us, La Samurai. What's like the most profound, the most dear aspect of that film for you?
Well, the La Samurai. So the thing that like resonated most with me was that he was alone, right?
Wow.
In the entire movie, he's always alone, right? and he's never talking to anybody. There's barely any dialogues from him particularly. And remember those long scenes when he's just in his room and there's like no decorations on the walls. There's nothing. He has no possessions, right? He's like a minimalist. He's like a Buddhist in that way, right? So he's just like laying on his bed, like smoking a cigarette, and that's it. And I love that because my wife doesn't like when I talk about myself like this, but I love that. I would love to be alone, to be left alone, right, by myself with no possessions. That's the type of person that I am too. So I that really resonated with me. And on top of that, he looked really cool doing that. And I just wanted to be like him, just wanted to kind of like have a trench coat with I could just like raise the collars and I said, I love that movie at so many levels. What about you?
Wow. Likewise, actually. I mean, I quite astounded. The two keywords which came to my mind as I was like just kind of processing La Samurai in a nutshell right now was really the perspective on solitude and minimalism. Like he doesn't have two of anything. if there is bird food in his apartment, there's just one packet out of which it is coming. It's not like he's got it well supplied or anything. He has one of everything that he needs. And except for hats, maybe he had a bunch of hats at his door, if I recall correctly. Yeah, so this solitude, uh, there's no the solitude, the state of solitude which is portrayed in La Samurai uh, is not a sorry state of being. It's
Mhm.
a very functional, high functional state of being. I wonder if this, it's not depressing and it's not lonesome.
Right,
It's solitude, but it's not lonesome.
right.
There's a purpose to the protagonist's solitude, and it has to be like that. And we see probably, like, a wild take, but maybe they portrayed the protagonist's character as a contract killer in this film so beautifully, so poetically, so cinematically, that it inspired many characters in the future. Like, for example, Leon the Professional. There's a certain similarity over there, even
Mm.
in something very recent. Like, I haven't been watching very many films of late, but I did make sure to check out David Fincher and Michael Fassbender's. What was it called? The Killer, I
The
think. Yeah,
Killer, The
the
Killer,
Killer,
yeah,
which came out
Netflix.
last year.
Hmm.
So even that has seems to have some inspiration from Alan Delon's La Samurai character.
Right.
Uh, yeah, that's a high five on amazing. Those two very things, solitude and minimalism, is what you talked about. And again, minimalism is generally in the rather culturally. Damn, I got myself mixed up over there. It has its associations, the philosophy of minimalism in Japanese culture, right? And no wonder we see, like, somewhere an interpretation of a Japanese philosophy here, and not just restricted to the concept of samurais and how they operated, how they might have operated back in the day, but also in philosophies like minimalism. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that's very intentional too, right? That he's living that life at multiple levels. And it's also very pragmatic for him, right? Being minimalistic it helps him move from one place to the other. Even the possessions that he has most of are like keys and hats, which helps him get away, right? He can hide himself with different hats and he can like change his get up. So that's
Yeah.
the only reason he has those things, because there are practical applications to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, so
Even the part where he gets wounded in between, I love how the character, operating in complete solitude, does not change his way of functioning. He's still operating in solitude,
right,
looking to recuperate, looking to heal from the wounds, tending to those wounds, and all of that is happening in solitude. Another a shout out, by the way, to how the director designed some of the interrogation scenes in this film. How set design comes to mind, like how the police interrogation rooms, how the movement is happening with the inspectors moving from one room to another, and I wonder if some of that has been done in a single take, or what. But it's quite amazing. The police station seems to have been designed like a maze with multiple rooms adjacent to each other, and the main officer moving through all those different rooms to, when they have to trace one of the
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can go on and on about this movie. Yeah, both Alain Delon and Jean-Pierre Melville. This is fine work. I think this is one of those movies that you can just watch the movie over and over again and learn how to make good movies just by watching it. And I think that's true for like all the filmmakers that we have talked about today. Okay, so I want to show one more clip. This is from Wim Wenders, Paris, Texas. Wim Wenders was a German filmmaker, and he's made other fantastic films like Wings of Desire, I think. Oh my God, that movie is also something else. But today I want to show a clip from one of my favorite films, Paris, Texas. You mentioned earlier that you just recently revisited it, right? Okay,
Like
so
yesterday. So
yesterday.
yeah, bring it on.
Bring it on. So this is perfect, right? Because I saw it a long time ago. Yeah, so this is about like a guy who's just been like a drifter for a while, right? And he's been missing actually from the lives of people who knew him for like many years. And he's been like out wandering somewhere. And what he's now starting to desire is to reconnect, right? So he wants to find his family back. But the clip that I'm going to show is actually the opening sequence.
Alright.
That helps us see his context before he's transitioning back into society.
Quite a legendary opening for a film.
Oh yeah. But like again, pay attention to the pacing, the camera angle,
Camera angles, the
cinematography, right?
cinematographic here.
The intentionality there again is something to pay attention to. Okay. Also, by the way, this is like a short trivia for anybody who's like out there watching without looking up on IMDb. If you can tell the lead star Harry Dean Stanton, which of the Marvel movies he shows up in and as what character. If you can tell without looking up on IMDb, I'm gonna give a shout out in the next video. So this is for Harry Dean Stanton. He's in one of the Marvel movies, and if you can tell which one and what is he doing. Okay, so here's the clip from Paris, Texas. This is the opening scene. Again, shout out to Criterion Collection one more time, right? Yeah. So,
wow.
do you wanna before I go to you, because I think you'll have like more input here. This is one thing that is like just like so astonishing to me in this whole clip is that he drinks that last sip of water, right?
Hmm.
From his that gallon container, and he
Hmm.
closes it tight again,
Hmm.
and he leaves it there because he's done with the water, right? There's no more water left. But he closes the cap back on tight and then leaves it,
Hmm.
which is astonishing to me, right? Like there's no more water left in there. There's nothing to
Yeah.
like close it back on, but perhaps he's been like so habitual of doing that every time he takes
Right.
a sip,
Right.
closes it
Right.
back, right? To save the water that he has, that he does
Yeah.
it one more time, one last time before he walks away. And then when he walks away, it's not a slow pace, right? He's just like, he goes. So even though he's an aimless drifter, he's like, this is his I think this is him going back to society, right? So you see like there's some intention to the way he's walking. At least that's how I read it. And then finally you can see the scale of the space that he's in the first shot itself. So he's definitely come a long way, and he has a long way to go.
Wow. No.
Without
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, nice take there. I differ on one of the points, and I'll come to that. Firstly, I love it that you have Paris, Texas in your top 10 itself. It would be there in my top 25, probably for sure. Yeah. So, shout out to the combination director of photography Robbie Mueller and uh, directed by Wenders. It's like a beautiful combination. Robbie Mueller is there's the limited 2 or 3 works of his that I've seen in this combination have just been inspirational, thought provoking in terms of how how they arrive at the frame. And then music, the strumming of a guitar, and that's it, to kind of answer to the wilderness which is shown in the visuals. Rai Kuder, shout out to Rai Kuder over there, legendary musicians, and some of his blues stuff is just awesome. He had done a collaboration with Vishwa Mohan Bhatt, I think, back in the 90s. Sometime. So and I'd heard that album like 10, 12 years ago, so I don't
Oh
remember the very
wow.
details, but it's something to I'd definitely recommend looking into. So um, what seems like, again, a mundane opening scene, uh, but without dialogue, and for those already familiar with the legend of this film, and those who are going to arrive at it, um, from something seemingly very mundane, just a shot of the wilderness and a man walking across it, a gallon of water and an eagle staring at the man. There's so much storytelling which happened over there, without any dialogues, of course, and just in the background music of Rai Kuder's blues guitar. Um, it seems, the man is lost. We see the kind of as uh, we see Wim Wenders' expression of the wilderness of the universe, the vastness, the nothingness, the wilderness.
Mm.
We see a glimpse of that captured here, somewhere, in the outdoors of Texas country. And so firstly that, and within that wilderness is a man who appears to be very lost, completely lost, and completely detached as well, not in tune with civilization, like an eagle which would meander and wander about in the most wild of places, in the most lonesome of places, where no other human being or not many animals themselves are wandering. An eagle is kind of, you know finds it remarkable to notice a man walking there, and walking there not prepared to be there. He is not trekking there. He
Right.
is in a suit which he has been, the same set of clothes for who knows how many days. There's a cap which is the hat is like full of sweat and dirt, and his entire look, that he's been lost for a long while now, and lost so much that in the wilderness, a creature as majestic and as avara as an eagle is kind of amazed to find a man there. And one point where I actually differ from you, and especially after my revisit yesterday, is I don't necessarily feel that after the drink of water is his return to finding whatever he's looking to find. I felt watching the movie that it's the universe which kind of finds him again. He's lost in the universe, and the universe finds him again and brings him, presents the civilization again to him. And after encountering civilization again, with the most familiar of people possible, like his brother coming out to his rescue, even there he shows some reservation. He again goes out walking in the wild a couple of times after his brother has found him in this estate. So very poetic what he's trying to express. Like when the film opens like this, one might wonder what is going to happen. Is it going to be some kind of a thriller? Some crime is going to happen? Something is going to go wrong with the guy? Is he going to die in the desert? We think of all of that, yet the film kind of returns in a surprising way to a very drama-based, drama kind of a storytelling. And another thing to note there, I felt was the bottle itself, out of which he's drinking the water. It might have been a milk container, somewhere, and along the way he refilled it with water, and it's not clean. It's not water he had purchased out of some shop somewhere, out of some 7-Eleven or something like that. It's just he does not care, is what it tells us as the viewers about the character. That the guy, once he's done with the water, and I find it interesting that you noted, I hadn't noticed him putting back the lid on the water container before throwing it away. That kind of adds to the poetic nature of it, that this person is so lost, so out of touch with the world, his own life and everything, yet out of muscle memory, maybe he just puts that lid back on before disposing of that water container, and he just moves on and paces. The pacing might be again because of a muscle memory or instinct of kind, that he's out of water. Also, now he's not carrying any bag or any supplies out there in the wild. So maybe that's the reason he's now pacing, that he has to get somewhere where there's water. But again, a perspective on solitude, and quite a beautiful one we get to see in this film. This is somebody who has now let themselves go of worldly associations, and they are at a place where they just don't care anymore. They are like as good as an alien.
Right. And I think you're making a good point about like the muscle memory part of it. Or as you were saying, I was thinking in terms of like this is this is not something new to him, it seems like. that he has been in this situation before,
Yeah.
where he has run out of water,
Right.
right? And because the pacing, it kind of indicates that, oh yeah, I just stopped for a second. I have to keep going, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so there's like that rhythm to his walking. Like he's not
Right,
just like
right.
he's not tired, right? In that way, that he's not like dragging his feet, or for the same reason, when he was done with that last sip, he wasn't like dejected so much that he just like threw the lid in the bottle, right? No, he just like he tightened it back, he threw
No
it away.
emotions.
Right. So that just kind of indicates that this is not the first time this
Yeah.
situation has come up, right?
Yeah,
So
he's gotten himself out of such or similar situations in the past as well. Wow, wow.
right,
And
right.
and also that he does not care anymore.
Yeah, I think that's
He
also a good
doesn't care if
observation.
it's the last drop of water that he just put away. He does not care if there was some more drops of water there in that bottle. He just doesn't care for that.
Right. And I thought of it as like he wasn't like desperate, because
Hmm.
it didn't seem like it's about survival, right? Because if he cared about survival, he would not have come wandering into the desert in the
Right.
first place, right?
Yeah,
So it's not that about him. So he's not seeming dejected. He's not like tired or exhausted. And it seems like he's been here before. The thing about like care, yeah, obviously, right? Like this person chose to walk away from society for years, right? For years. Clearly, he doesn't care about a lot of things that people care about, right?
Yeah.
So that's the type of character that we're looking at. But
Yeah.
again, without any words, in like a scene that's like barely 2 minutes long, right? We can establish all of this about a character, their background, where they're coming from, where they're probably going, what type of person they are, right? You can unpack all of that. And I think that's a mark of a good film, a good filmmaker.
Yeah. Unpacking so much without, show don't tell, that kind of a thing, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
we really, with just this opening sequence, we are posed with the question that where is this person coming from and where is this person going, which somewhere encapsulates the essence of this film. Sure, it transcends beyond, but in terms of the story, it already captures the main core of the story. That where is this protagonist, this person coming from, so lost, so detached, nothing to do with the world, and where is he headed?
Right. So
Yeah.
if you look at like all the clips and all the people that we've talked about today, all the clips that we've seen today, you would not see anybody like narrating, right? You would never see narration, right?
Right.
And I always found that narration was very condescending, right? Because you are assuming that I need to be told. As an audience, I need to be told what's happening. And that is the reason why people add narration. They feel like when their stories are too complex or there are too many characters, they would start a narration, right? In fact, I was reading a while ago, I don't remember which film critic it was in India, but they were talking about how when we were making films in India, we were always making them for everybody, right? It had to be all the audiences, because you had to rope everybody in to make that money. And every now and then what would happen is like one movie would come out for like weeks, right? And then the only movie people would watch would be that movie. So you can't be like selective or like artistic, is that, oh, I'm only going to do this, and like who cares what. So you have to be marketable to everybody, right? Which means people are going to come from background where they don't have the education, or they may not have the lived experience with different aspects of like different classes and different cultures and religions, right? So they need to be explained and told a lot of times that what is going on here, right? And one of the examples that I love this movie, but I think it can do without a narration, but it needs a narration, is Lagan. Right, there's Amitabh Bachchan narrating in the entire movie, but he has to narrate in the movie because there's parts of it that are in English, and that too with British accent, right? So the moment the Britishers start talking, Amitabh Bachchan would step in and he'd be like, so this is what's happening and that's what's happening, right? But if you see the version that they submitted to the Academy Awards, there is minimal narration from Amitabh Bachchan. The scenes from the British actors are all without his narration in the background. So that was the reason like people went with narration. But you see, narration is never a director's choice in that way, because they don't want to like dumb it down for the audiences. And you see more movies like these, you would rarely find narration. In fact, you would rarely find dialogue that much, right? Because there's so much of visual storytelling that needs to be done. But the bottom line is, this is why I love movies.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you captured it perfectly. That's why I love movies too, and so many like us out there must be as well. And it's really about, you know, how subtle can it be kept, and narration ultimately takes away from that. The beauty lies in the subtlety, I guess, and that's what I tend to like more as well. You know, the more and more subtle ways of expressing something, rather than being loud and direct about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess this is it for our second episode.
Yeah, that's why we love movies.
Right, that's why we love movies. We'll return with a third episode, perhaps back to music. And until then, if you are watching out there and you're liking what we're doing, please leave some comments so we know what type of stuff you would like to watch more from us, or what type of things you want us to talk about. So give us feedback, engage with us. We'd appreciate that. Right. On that note, bye for now.
All right.